The Wire is a show that will keep you on the edge of your seat and surprise you at every turn. Today in this video, I'm going to cover the 10 best plot twists in The Wire. Welcome back to The Screen Cinema. Let's get into the video. Number 10, Cheese's death. Though only a supporting character, Cheese Wagstaff was an entertaining villain. He was a shady hustler who was willing to sell out anyone in order to rise in power. In the series finale, with drug kingpin Marlo Stanfield out of the way, the remaining crime figures meet to reorganize their former co-op. Cheese begins to step up, talking big and acting as if he will be the new man in charge. While in the middle of his intimidating speech, Slim Charles casually shoots him in the head, making his time in power very brief.
And the game and what happened here today.
You right.
Number 9, Templeton gets away with it. Each season of the show took a look at a different aspect of Baltimore and how it related to the drug problem. The Wire's final season of the show dealt with the newspaper business and featured a character named Scott Templeton. In an attempt to make a name for himself at the struggling newspaper, Templeton begins fabricating stories and stretching the truth to make it more interesting. His editor becomes suspicious and it seems like the walls are finally closing in around Templeton, but in the end, the publishers are more interested in Templeton's stories. The editor is fired and Templeton receives huge acclaim.
Jesus. How'd you do it? How'd you get him by the medical examiner? Some are real and I just linked them with the ribbons.
Number 8, McNulty fakes a serial killer. Jimmy McNulty is probably the closest thing the show is to a main character. He is a dedicated detective, but he finds himself on a downward spiral. By the final season, McNulty is a complete mess who is more willing to push the boundaries of what is acceptable. Frustrated with the lack of resources allotted for his investigation into Marlo Stanfield, McNulty stages the natural death of a homeless man to look like a serial killer so he can use the increased fund for his own discretion.
Hey.
Number 7, Marlo takes over. Marlo Stanfield is introduced in the 3rd season of the show and very quickly becomes one of the best villains in the series. He is a young man who proves himself to be ruthless in his rise to power within the criminal underworld of Baltimore. After joining the co-op of drug dealers who share the same connection, Marlo makes a move to take over. He makes his own deal with the connection, murders the co-op leader, Prop Joe, and becomes the most powerful crime figure in the city. Number 6, Stringer kills D'Angelo. D'Angelo Barksdale is the nephew of Avon Barksdale, one of the most powerful criminals in Baltimore. Though he initially works for Avon, he begins to feel rotten about some of the terrible things they do and breaks away from the organization. Avon's right-hand man, Stringer Bell, begins to see D'Angelo as a risk, essentially since he is in prison. Stringer eventually goes behind Avon's back and has D'Angelo murdered in prison. Number 5, Bubbles gets clean. There are not too many sympathetic characters in The Wire, but it's hard not to root for Bubbles. He is a drug addict living on the streets and struggling to survive day after day. But seeing many characters swallowed up by their addictions, things don't look good for Bubbles. However, in the end, Bubbles beats the odds. He hits rock bottom first and has to regain the trust of his loved ones. But in the final episode, he faces his demons and finds the redemption he truly deserved.
Yes. The same thing get me right with myself. Couple days ago,
Number 4, Michael is the new Omar. The 4th season of the show introduces several young characters, including Michael. He is a smart and caring young man who seems destined to get sucked into the world of crime despite his better intentions. Michael does eventually join Marlo's crew, but never feels like one of them. When the others begin to suspect Michael is a rat, they order him to be killed. Michael escapes and disappears. The final scene of the series shows Michael robbing some drug dealers, following the same path as the local street legend, Omar Little.
Wow, strawberry.
Number 3, Kima rats on McNulty and Lester. Lester Freeman is likely the most talented cop on the show, and he is also dedicated to taking down criminals. When McNulty brings him to his plan about the fake serial killer, Lester sees it as an opportunity to finally catch Mario Stanfield. However, when their colleague Kima Greggs learns about the plan, she sees it as a dangerous and reckless gamble. After everything they have been through, Kima does what she thinks is right and turns her friend in. McNulty and Lester are fired when Mario is allowed to walk. Number 2, Stringer and Avon turn on each other. Avon Barksdale and Stringer Bell are introduced as 2 inseparable companions who grew a drug empire together. But as the series continues, the relationship grows tenser and it eventually proves that even a friendship like theirs can't survive in this world. One of the most memorable scenes in the series finds the 2 friends sharing a final conversation together. They talk like friends all the while knowing that they plan to betray each other. In the end, Stringer gives Avon up to go to prison for life and Avon sets Stringer up to be murdered. Number 1, Omar's death. Omar Little is likely the most popular and most fascinating character on the show. He's a Robin Hood-like figure who robs from drug dealers and follows a code to not harm any citizen who is not in the game. The final season of the show finds Omar going to war with Marlowe. Though he is formidable, it does begin to feel like Omar's days are numbered. But instead of Marlowe hunting him down, one of the most important characters in the entire series is randomly shot by a young boy looking to make a name for himself. This brings us to the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any of our videos in the future. Also, watch the 2 videos that are on your screen because I'm sure you'll love them. With that, I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.